welcome to the Modern Fairy Sightings podcast. I am delighted to have with me today a very special guest, my friend and fellow podcaster, author and artist, fairy whisperer, Claire Casely, who is also a fairy experiencer and a researcher. You may know her from her podcast, Weird Wonderful Wonders, which you can find on Spotify and a number of other places that she will let you know now. Welcome, Claire.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you. It's so lovely to be here. We've been talking about this for a while, haven't we? And
We have, yeah.
it's really lovely, and it feels like the right time. It's always good timing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we first spoke, I remember receiving your email way back in, I think well, obviously I must have released my podcast then, because you wrote to me and introduced me to the work that you were doing then, and we've spoken about this briefly, but you and I and a number of other people like Kate Hairgirl Ray and Beth Ann Briggs Miller and Elsa from Erietics, all of us, we were working away on projects, and then when lockdown hit individually, because we didn't know each other then, around the same time we began these projects that were connecting people with fairies. So whether that would be through the walking videos that you produced, and I was obviously creating my podcast. Yeah, can you describe how that was? Because although you connected with me at that point, you'd been working towards this for some time before then.
Yes. So go back to 2016. I reconnected with the fairies then. I'd always had an on-off connection with them, but I really made a kind of a commitment to really connect with them and for that to be my path. And that was through a little short course that I did online that helped me connect with other fairy people as well. And at that time, I started, I think this was part of the course. The advice was to start a journal. So I started a journal, and that's when I started to really connect with the fairies, because I go out into nature and journal about my experiences. So just focusing on the sort of build up to lockdown, I suppose. In 2017, it was quite a big year for me because my mum was diagnosed with cancer. And I was doing some things to help my well-being. And one of those things was I went to a little workshop that a friend was doing where we were connecting to the primrose.
Right.
And as you probably know, primroses are very much a fairy flower, and some people believe that they are the doorway to the fairy realm, or one of the doorways. And in this meditation, I connected with a pixie guide that I was familiar with, but also a new guide came in, this beautiful female guide. I didn't have her name at the time, but time went on, life got busy again. And then in 2019, it was the build up to the equinox. I always find the equinoxes and the cross quarter days really powerful times to connect with fairies, the other world. And I was doing a wonderful course, and I must give him a shout out. It's a guy called Jeremy Garner, and
Yeah, maybe
he's
mentioning him.
he's got a really lovely YouTube channel. He's written loads of books. He's kind of a bit of a magician and an artist and a writer. And he released for free a clairvoyance develop your clairvoyance course. I thought, oh, this would be brilliant because I know he's very tapped into the fairy world. So I started meditating every day. I started, reading the instructions for this course about how to go deeper, how to open your third eye more and go deeper into that connection with the fairies. So I started doing this every day. And in the process of that, I journaled. This is one of my journals. Um,
Oh, beautiful.
yeah, so I decorate them all.
Yeah. I mean, you must show us some artwork later as well, because
Yeah,
it's such an individual style that you have, and really very characterful
thank
pieces that
you.
you produce. So yeah.
Yeah, so I find this a really useful way just to write. I mean, first thing in the morning for me is the best time.
Mm.
And during this meditation, literally the first time I was doing this, going deeper, opening up my third eye more, I was taken on a journey where I met, I was in this beautiful landscape and I was taken across a river on a boat by a fairy guardian of a
Mm.
place near where I live that I'd connected with before. And we travelled across the river to the other side of the river, and there was this woman, and she has long dark hair, pale skin, white robes. Her hair was plaited at the front. She has very dark eyes. And she introduced herself as Tuana and said, I'm your guide, I'm your fairy guide. I'm going to be working with you. Um, and over the course of a few weeks, she took me through all these different initiations and new information and knowledge about
Mm.
fairies. Um,
Can I just ask you what
yeah,
how was that process? Can you describe it without revealing anything personal, but um sort of going through that kind of initiation process? How did that
yeah.
yeah.
So part of it, the first part of it was she took me to a mound. I mean, I love hills.
Mm.
I think they're really, all the hills and the landscape are very sacred. She took me to a mound which opened up and she said, this is where we're going to tune you up, basically. So it's like we went into this crystal cavern
Mm.
with this very blue light, an enormous crystal in the middle. And so this is going to help to just lift your vibration
Mm.
so that you can connect with us
Yeah.
more easily. Um, and I've since found out that she's one of the she. And whenever I have these connections with new guides, which I've had over the years, I Google their names.
Oh, yeah, of course. That we
So,
all definitely do that as soon as we've had some realization.
yeah.
Straight to Google.
So I Googled her name, and so the two, it means of, I think it comes from Irish, like Irish, two, like of, like um, like the Tuatha.
Yeah, to a Danan, yeah.
Yeah. So, and Hannah is a very old Hebrew name, Chana, which means favor or grace.
Oh.
Um, but it's also related to Diana, the goddess Diana,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
Dana. So
Mm.
isn't that amazing? That name, which I'd never encountered before, goes back to this fairy queen or fairy goddess.
Yeah.
Um, and it also links to Tana, which is the sacred name of the great goddess. She is the goddess of all goddesses.
Beautiful, yeah.
So,
So beautiful
yeah,
feminine energy. Excuse me.
yes, yeah, this beautiful energy.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, she gave me lots of messages during this time, like standing in my own power, having self-belief, believing in myself, and also focusing on the water. She said, you need to work with the water and emotions. And I think she meant to, to help other people,
Mm.
but also she was talking about pollution, the waters of the earth being
Mm.
polluted, and helping with that. So it was quite an amazing, powerful time. And that went on for a few months. And then obviously 2020 started, and we were also oblivious of what was going to happen next.
Yeah.
And then lockdown happened in that March, so exactly a year after I'd started having this contact
Mm.
with this new fairy guide. And it's only now I realise, well, that was obviously, to me, preparing me for that time.
Yeah.
And then lockdown was like, even though it's a terrible time for lots of us, I mean, emotionally and mentally and
Mm.
everything, it also helped me to focus on, okay, what do I really want to do? I want to record these meditations that I've been gifted.
Yeah.
So I went through my journals and I typed them up and I recorded them. And it was so quiet. I mean, it's quite quiet where I live now, but there are no cars. It's so peaceful. So almost
Yeah,
like
that's right. It
had a
really was.
ready-made.
Yeah, it was really strikingly quiet,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah. I had a kind of a ready-made recording studio, really.
Mm.
Sorry, my camera's gone a bit. There we go.
Okay.
Is that right? Yeah. So yeah, I recorded them. I thought I'm going to get them out there. I did. Found some music, and now I've come to the point where I want to re-release them because
Mm.
there are the stories that go with them. There are experiences that I had. So all the meditations are based on the inner journeys I had, but then something would also manifest in my outer world. So I had this amazing,
Right.
I've got to share this with you, this amazing experience where
Oh, yeah, please.
I had a dream. So one of the meditations I did was called, it's to do with a fairy door. I've had experiences with fairy doors. In this dream, I was taken by, and it was like one of these liminal dreams. So in the early hours in the morning, where
Hmm.
I suppose I was just between sleep and waking, I was taken by to Anna, my fairy guide, to a big oak tree and some woods. And we shrunk down and we went into this tree, and it was full of fairy people of different heights. And there were gnomes, there were pixies, there were she people,
Mm.
different people, and they all turned around and looked at me, and she said, "This is," and they welcomed me. And then she said, "I'm going to open up chakras in your third eye area." And she touched my forehead, and my forehead lit up with all these different lights. Um, and then, and there was, in this dream, on the door, there was a strange symbol that I didn't recognize at the time. And when I woke up, I drew this symbol, I
Mhm.
looked it up, and it was the symbol Degas. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Oh,
Degas,
like a rune.
a rune,
Yeah.
which
I,
means
I can't remember what that looks like, but yes, I
it,
am familiar
it,
with it. I cannot think what it looks like.
it looks like a bow tie, like a butterfly
Okay, yeah, yeah,
or a
yeah.
bow tie.
Yeah, yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
Um, I went downstairs.
What does
I
it
was
mean?
making
Oh, sorry.
it's awakening. It means awakening, dawn.
Okay.
It's the dawn, so it's like
Gosh.
awakening.
Wow.
And what she was
Yeah.
doing was awakening me.
Yeah.
Um, I went downstairs. I couldn't believe this because my son came downstairs to the kitchen.
Yeah.
I said, Ethan, what have you got on your forehead? And imprinted on his forehead, like, you know, like when you rest something against your skin and it leaves a
Yeah.
mark,
Yeah. Yeah.
was the symbol of this room.
Shivers. That is quite something.
I know, I'm shivering now. So
Did
what? I said, have you slept strangely or something? He didn't know.
he
I was
wasn't
like,
aware of it.
no, I took a photo of it. I've got that photo somewhere. I photographed it because it was just so, and it faded. Um, and I said, oh, what would you like to do today? And the kids love this little park.
Mm.
They used to. I think they probably still like it, even though they're
Mhm.
teenagers.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let's go there. So we went to this park, and there's this beautiful old tree at the entrance to this park. And I just noticed that day, I thought, I've never noticed that before, because at the bottom of the tree, there's like an arch, a clear place in the bark that's like a door,
Yeah.
and it's got a little handle, like a
Oh,
little
sweet.
a knobble.
Mm,
And it's
mm.
completely natural. But in the middle of this door was this symbol again, like just in the bark. I was like, this is amazing. This is incredible. um, so yeah, it was a really powerful
Mm.
affirmation that what I was experiencing was, this is the way I saw it. Other people might think, oh no, it's a load of rubbish. But the way I saw it was that, oh my gosh, that's like an affirmation that the experience I've had in the
Yeah.
dream world is, in this waking reality as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
it's
Mm,
it's also making me think of the blend between the kind of dream world, the other world, and what we call waking reality. But
mm,
if we allow it to, it can those can be less separated and can kind of begin to blend, if you like. And
mm,
the way that we live our lives, so we've got to get up in the morning, got to get dressed, got to go to school, got to go to work, got to do all of these things. Obviously
mm,
we've always had to live by rhythm, and we've always had to um in order to live, to be able to eat, to be able to have shelter and all of those things. But what would it be like if we did understand the dream world and the other world within
mm,
our what we call our waking world? How many people may have these messages while they're
mm,
sleeping, and then they get up and they're straight out and they're doing their thing,
mm,
and perhaps not even take the time to notice, because it's
mm.
just difficult to do that, isn't it? But like you say, in
Yeah.
lockdown, we kind of had that space to do that as well. And people's
Mm,
dreams at that time were super vivid and really
yeah.
strong, and so much wisdom there.
Mm,
That's really quite something.
mm.
So did you end up working with that symbol then? Or was it then part of another process?
Um, I just wrote about it and just took notice that what I ended up doing was calling the series of meditations that I'd recorded
Mm,
Heart Awakening, because it's
mm,
about awakening the heart. And I really think that time we had allowed us, if we were so inclined, I suppose, to go inward and focus on the heart and awaken consciously, to another level of consciousness. Um,
Definitely.
once once we got back past the, oh gosh, what's going to happen with
Mm,
work, etc. And I was in a situation where I had a business, and at first I thought, oh gosh, I've lost that, I've lost everything. And then I thought, actually, but I've gained this time to focus on this that I've never had, because we can always come up with distractions, can't we, for
mhm,
ourselves? Um,
mm,
so it was really lovely. And I think, like you say, shamans of old and shamans today around the world, they live this process, don't they? This process of dreaming and bringing the dream into the real world, as we call it. But there's something perhaps in our present day culture, certainly in this country, it's been devalued and it's seen as, oh, not a valuable thing to do,
mm.
spend time doing. But
Yeah, yeah. It's perhaps, I mean, I guess this is a bit, I don't know whether I'm saying this too strongly, but almost the idea that it's rather wasteful
yes, yeah,
to to take the time to do that.
mm,
But I feel that that is changing. I mean, mindfulness is something that has really been taken seriously now, mindful practice. And, that's really encouraging. I'm sure you've noticed that over the last kind of 15,
yes,
20 years, it's been brought into the workplace, and that is very encouraging. But, and if you, I've worked in lots of offices, so this is my experience. Some people do come in and say, "Oh, I had a really weird dream last night," and generally people are quite
mm,
interested. Like, "Oh, what was it?"
yeah,
So innately kind of
yeah,
we innately are drawn to these stories that are spun by our deep subconscious.
yes, yeah,
And,
mm,
there's a bit of jibing maybe if somebody's had something particularly vivid, but
mm,
I think innately most of us feel kind of quite reflective about our dreams if we're
mm,
interested if we have those dreams. And the vividness of those dreams in that lockdown time,
mm,
it was like there was some very deep wisdom talking to us, whether it be through dreams, through meditation, as you say,
mm, yeah,
intuition in the waking day.
mm, yes, yeah. I had a really vivid dream last night about, I've been watching a series on Netflix a friend recommended to me called, um, the something apocalypse.
Oh, is this the Ancient Apocalypse? Is it
Ancient
Graham Hancock?
Apocalypse.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
Graham Hancock. Absolutely
Yeah.
brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
It's
amazing.
really, really good. Yeah, yeah. We'd
And
watched the first episode because we'd watched the documentary he did in the 90s, which
yeah.
I'll flash up here for anyone that's interested. But we
Mm,
were watching that and it's so good.
mm.
But yeah, this new series is fantastic. Really
It
great.
is. And I must admit to binge watching it because I was just like, this is amazing.
Right.
And I finished watching it last night. I went to bed, and unsurprisingly, I suppose I had a dream about it, but I had all these realizations. I thought, gosh, there's so much I realized. Because obviously, I really love the landscape,
Mm,
and that's how I connect with the fairy realm. And there's so many realizations I had about the landscape and about, because there's quite a few hill forts around me. And I thought, well, if this big apocalypse happened, then and most of the land was flooded. Were these places that people later turned into hill forts? Were they
mm.
islands at one time?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is that where this whole idea of the Isles of Avalon come from, and
Mm,
why these why these areas of land were so protected, and fortified? Is it because people wanted to retain their resources?
Yeah.
These are just,
Yeah.
I know that's out there, but
No, I don't think it is
it
at
just,
all,
yeah,
given
it just,
the amount of evidence that is there
mm,
about how, you know, about the flood that looks very likely to have
mm,
happened, and it's right there in all of the legends. No, I don't think it is out there, personally.
yeah, yeah. So I was going to talk about, do you want me to talk about some pixie fairy
Yeah,
experiences?
so I mean, you touched on there
Yeah,
as well that you're surrounded by hill forts down there, and
yeah,
so you live on
mm,
Dartmoor,
mm,
and it would take you about, was it about 50? Because we obviously I came down and we had a lovely walk together. It was about 15 minutes
yeah,
from your house, isn't it? So you can jump in the car. Is it about
yeah.
15
So
minutes?
it's about to get to Haytal from here because it's about 20-minute
About 20
drive.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're just right there, in the midst of this wonder of Britain.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, I would love to be
Yeah.
able to get there more often. Um, and you created these videos, which is
Mm,
what you sort of started putting on YouTube during
mm.
lockdown, wasn't it?
It was before lockdown because we weren't allowed to go up to Dartmoor during
Ah,
lockdown
okay.
officially. So before, I think it's about 2018-ish, I started making videos about
Right.
places around me, and yeah, yeah, up until lockdown really, and then I've done some more since. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And you had some of your own experiences as well, so fairy experiences or pixie experiences, I should call them.
yeah, yeah. Um, I've had a series over a few years of pixie experiences connected with this one place, which I won't mention, but it's a beautiful woodland. And I was drawn there because I knew it was a beautiful, mystical place connected with fairies. And so I went there in 2016 with my journal, and before, yeah, I felt really drawn up there, and I was approaching this woodland, and I could hear psychically giggling. So I tend to experience fairies through sound
Mm,
mostly, or third eye imagery.
mhm.
So my experience of seeing fairies is seeing them psychically, but I have had one experience, maybe one or two experiences where I've seen at the corner of my eye,
Yeah.
um, or shadows and things in my house. And so anyway, I was approaching this wood, heard giggling, and this voice said, "Keep walking around the edge of the wood because there's something very special there that we want you to see."
Hmm.
So I kept walking, got to the end of the wood, and there was this amazing stone that I didn't know about at that time, standing stone. And I said, "Can I come into the wood?" Because as you know, it's always a good idea to ask permission before
Mm,
you go into these special places. And they said, "First, initiation." So I thought, I wonder what that means. And then I thought, well, actually, for the last few weeks, I'd had the message, which I'd ignored, to go and pick up rubbish in my local park.
yes.
And I hadn't done it. So I'd brought with me, I tend to carry with me like some kind of plastic bag. I can pick up rubbish when I'm
Yeah.
in nature. I thought, oh, I wonder what this rubbish is. Now, it was, I looked around and I could see something behind the stone. And I looked and it was like somebody had used it as the bathroom,
Oh no.
not very nice. So I thought, oh, great, they've made this job really yucky for me.
Gosh. Yeah.
So, but I'm going to do it. So I cleared away this toilet paper and stuff. And I said, well, now can I come in? And I got a clear yes, feeling of yes. So I went and I spent some time in the woods, did some drawings, noticing a tree spirit I could see that I drew. Um, I mean, most of my art is what I see
Yeah.
psychically. Then came home. I'd taken some photos as well. I came home, posted a couple of my photos in a little fairy group I belonged to at the time, and somebody said, "Oh, there's a little man in the tree." And I looked and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So the way that the light was falling and the shadows and everything, it looked like a little figure in the tree.
Hmm.
So I thought, well, yeah, that could be pareidolia. But then I looked, and the closer I looked, I thought, oh my gosh, he's pointing. He's standing, he was in the oak tree that was
Hmm.
above the stone, and it's like he was pointing to where the rubbish was. Um, and I've since drawn him actually. I've got a
Yeah.
picture of him.
Can you show that, please? That's
Yeah,
lovely. I've just made a
yeah.
note. To, yeah.
I can always send you the picture to show people. Let's have a look. Sorry, I should have got it ready before.
That's okay. You can show us some more as well.
Yeah. Oh, so there he is. So this, oh, this
Mm.
is a nicer version because this is the original version,
Yeah.
okay, of
Mm.
how I kind of interpreted him.
Oh, this is amazing. Yeah. Oh,
Um,
wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so he had, I mean, I
Mm.
think he looked a bit scary, but his energy wasn't scary.
Mm. Hmm.
But I mean, so that's my first sort of experience of seeing a pixie.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And he's got on his back, he's actually got little horns, but
Hmm.
on his back it was like lichen, you know. So
Yes.
his
Yes.
clothes
Yes.
were like lichen, and
Oh, that's
his
lovely.
eye, his eyes were like lights, you know, like white lights, white green lights. They weren't like human eyes. They were,
Mm.
you know, but I haven't drawn them like that, so I thought that might be a bit scary. But that's how he looked. And then I did a different version, which is a bit more sort of sweeter. Can you see that?
Okay. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Mm,
Yeah. Great. Fabulous artwork, Claire. I mean, I'd love to be
thank
able
you.
to draw like this. Could you show us the one on the other side there as well? Of because I
Yeah,
recognise
yeah.
that one. That's a beauty.
So this is the stone,
Yeah.
and again I've put the pixie in above the stone,
Hmm.
just like on there. Yeah, and all the other fairy beings
Gorgeous.
that I sense in that wood.
Mm.
Um, so that was my first experience with this particular pixie, and I tuned in to him, and he said when I was driving to buy some crystals actually from a town nearby on Dartmoor, and I heard as I was passing where this wood was, I heard the word malachite.
Mm.
I mean, fairies, in my experience, fairies don't give you their name; they give you a symbol,
Hmm.
something that symbolizes something that they want or something that they represent.
Mm.
So I thought, well, that means he wants me to take him some malachite crystal. So I bought these two malachite crystals. And I was looking at them at home. One of them looked like it had like a whirl on it, like a portal.
Yeah.
And the other one was like, and it was door shaped. And the other one was like a keyhole, I think.
Right.
So it's like the door and the key.
Mm.
And it was around that time, so this was 2017, my mum had recently diagnosed with cancer. She was really poorly. She was living with me,
Oh
which was a really
gosh,
difficult
really
time.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was yearning to go back to this wood. And I'd been talking to, because I was telling my children about my experiences. And I said, my son said, I really want to go there with you. So I managed to get some care for my mum that day so we could go.
Mm.
And we took these crystals up to the wood. We took a few crystals. And Ethan, sorry, I shouldn't say my son's name, no, but um, my son was really tuned in. He still is really. Both my children are, and we got to the wood. I said, "Well, let's walk around this special stone and gift the pixie these one of these crystals."
Mm.
Um,
And this was malachite.
Malachite, yeah,
Malachite, and it's green malachite, isn't
mm,
it?
yeah. It's
It's like
got
a sort of
loads.
dark green.
Yeah, it's got amazing sort of properties, loads of properties, which I can't remember, but I think it's connected with the blood as well.
Okay. Mm. That
Yeah,
would
it's
make
got a whole
sense with it
list.
being. Yeah. Anyway,
I think
interesting.
it's, yeah, nature, um, balancing, I think it is as well. It's to do with balancing. I've got a whole list. I've written them all down. But so my son found a tree. He said, "Oh, I'm going to put this crystal in this tree," and this tree had a hole in it. And so he dropped the crystal in.
Mm.
And then I came out of the wood. As I came out of the wood, my sister sent me a message. She sent me a photograph just as we were leaving the wood.
Mm.
And she said, "Oh, look, Claire, I found this message on the back of one of my paintings. I wanted to send it to you." And it said, "Everything is going to be okay."
Where did the picture come from?
My sister had because she's an artist like me,
Yeah.
she had found on the back of one of her paintings, she'd written, "Everything is going to be okay."
Oh,
And at that moment, we were walking out of the wood.
yeah.
She sent me that photo.
Oh, beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah. And
So,
did that reflect on kind of what happened next in terms of
he,
what was going on?
yeah, I think it just felt like, oh, it was that, like that reciprocal connection that we can build with the fairies, where we give something back
Hmm. Hmm.
and then something comes to us, like that message. I
Very
felt
true.
that was something that was to bring me some comfort, because I was very worried at the
Mm.
time about my
Yeah.
mum. So it was almost like, well, you've done something for us. Well, you've scratched our backs, we'll scratch yours, sort of
Mm.
thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. We are sometimes drawn to, give offerings and connect with
Mm,
these places or go to these places for some reason. And it can even just be
mm,
giving a part of ourselves, putting our hands on the ground and just sending our love to that
yes.
place, or as you say, picking up rubbish or whatever it is.
Mm,
And then there's this reciprocal sense that goes on. I mean, when Paolo and I went to the woods a few weeks ago, we
mm,
felt in well, we were walking through what looked like a little sort of like a tunnel of the trees. The trees had come together, and I said, "Oh,
mm,
this is something nice about this place. Let's just stop." And this is where we left an offering. And as we
mm,
stopped at that moment, he said, "Oh, look, there's one." And we were looking for fly agarics. Well, he was looking for fly agarics, so I was along for the ride
mm.
because I'd never
Ah,
been hunting for fly agarics before.
mm,
And yeah,
mhm,
just at that moment, as I gave that offering and just felt intuitively that that's where we should stop, perhaps called in some way. that's when he turned around and said, "Look, there's one right there, just on the edge of where we stood." So you,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it is. It's a very powerful thing to do, and again, that is to do with it comes from the heart, doesn't it? It's a
mm,
heart connection that we
yeah,
have. It's not like we don't do these things just for the sake of it, or just
no,
to, oh, if I do this, I'll get something back. We do it as a heart offering, and like you say, and then these something comes back
yeah,
to
yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's great. So did you end up kind of leaning into that a bit more and working
yeah.
with this fairy being then?
Yes, especially at that time because how old were my children then? They're they were 10, coming up for 11. So it's
Gosh,
still little. And I really
yeah.
felt that their energy, children's energy attracts fairies.
Mm,
Um, the most of my experiences I've had have been when I've been with my children. Um, So, yeah, a few months later, after this visit my son and I had to the woods, we were looking through our photos and looking at, because I took a picture of my son putting this crystal into the tree, and we looked at the tree, and my son said, "Oh my gosh, that looks like a face." I was like, "Oh, yeah." So it looked like this hole in the tree was like an eye.
okay, wow, yeah,
And I said, "It's almost like you've put the crystal into the pixie's eye."
mm, yeah.
um, Yeah, so that it amazes me how all-encompassing, I suppose, the fairy realm is, and how they can shift their size, they can shift their, um, they can take on the appearance of something in nature. They can
Mm.
sort of imprint themselves onto a tree or a rock, or they can,
Oh,
yeah,
or
yeah.
maybe even they are an aspect of that tree or that rock,
Mm,
that
yeah.
they are a kind of spiritual manifestation of that in some way. And
Mm,
yeah, because we can connect with either the plant itself or the tree or the space, and that can just be kind of one layer of it.
yes.
And
Yeah.
then it can happen, that you then it can be an auditory experience, as you say. Sometimes you will hear
Mm,
something when you're in that
mm,
place, and another layer can potentially then be visual, where you will see some kind of being that maybe relates to that place in some way.
yes. Yeah. I really feel that there are certain fairies that are guardians of places. Like you know, that image I got of that particular fairy being that as a pixie, it's like a representation of this is the guardian of this place. This is the head honcho, if you like,
Yeah.
of the fairies of that place,
Hmm.
or of that particular part of that place, maybe.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Did you end up working with that spot in the landscape after that?
Mm,
Was that somewhere that was right? Okay, this is nice, because it's kind of an introduction. There's an
yeah.
opening and a welcome, and
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's not an easy place to get to. I mean, I don't have a car at the moment, so I haven't been up
right.
there recently. But
Mm.
over like every Samhain, I'd go up there, or in the summer around Beltane,
Mhm.
um, and go there every year and make it as almost like a pilgrimage of
Mhm.
going to this place and spending time
Mhm.
there. There are other places that I go to as well and spend time. Um, During lockdown, I created a magical space in a woodland
Yeah.
near me that I worked with.
Mm.
Um, and that was very powerful. And it was just some of these places can just be of a certain time. So I worked with it for that time. It served a purpose. And and then for various reasons I couldn't go back there.
Mhm.
But I still walk past it and send it my thanks of,
Mm.
thank you for helping me through that time.
How were you
Um,
drawn to that one? How did that happen? Was that just a general walk or?
that was through, again, that was from a few years ago, about 2017. I was on a hillside
Mhm.
on a workshop, and I was looking out over the landscape, and I saw this beautiful valley. And I thought, I've never sort of noticed that before. I wonder where that is. And it was wooded. It was wooded on both sides, but on one side it was, deciduous wood. On
Mm.
the other side it was conifer plantation on a hill. And I thought, I wonder where that is. So I thought, I'm going to find that place. And I love maps. So I looked on the maps. I thought, oh, actually, it's not far from where I live. And I walked there, and it's this beautiful little woodland. And at that time, it was May, when I first went there. I think that was May 2017, I think. And it was just full of bluebells. I thought, oh my gosh, this is definitely a fairy place.
Mm.
It was just had that feeling about it. So I took my children there after that and started sensing to what this place was. I felt there was some dragon energy there. I always connect that with hills, but
Mhm.
dragon energy. And it became, I've written about it actually quite a lot because it's just got a special feeling to it. And it's not somewhere that many people walk through.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm,
And like you say, in lockdown, this kind of happened a lot that well, did you say you were working at it, working with it during lockdown? Was that because it was
yes,
somewhere you could get to easily in
yeah,
your vicinity? Right.
yeah. Within a close sort of area to where I live.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was able to still go there and work with the place, and it helped me emotionally through
Yeah,
that time. It
yeah.
was like a place I could go to and just be and connect with the other world and work through some emotions as well. It
Hmm.
was really, really good.
So important, isn't it? It's
Mm,
really helpful
mm,
to be able to do
mm.
that. And um you had had an you mentioned your mum and
Yes.
you must have been very close and
Mm.
you had had an experience with your mum, hadn't you?
Yes. So this was 2016. Yeah, my mum's still around,
Oh, good.
by the
Okay.
way.
That is so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
So everything was
yeah.
okay.
Yes, yeah, she's still
Yeah,
fighting cancer, and she's still going. So it's good.
that's great.
Um 2016, before she was diagnosed with cancer, we went to a lovely moorland garden, and it's one of my favorite places. Again, another place I go to every year. It's private, but they open up every year for the National Garden for Charity scheme.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I've been saying to my mum, we must go there. So it was a really warm day, actually. I think it's about June or July time.
Hmm.
And there's a lovely cafe there. You can get a cup of tea and cake. And we had a bit of a wander. They've got a little fairy garden there as well, which is sort of private, sort of in its own little area with lots of little fairy statues and things, which my mum loved. And then we went to walk around the main gardens. And after our walk, we were walking back to go and have a cup of tea. And there was this big log, huge. I mean, must have been about 15, 20 feet long, sort of huge, like a fallen tree.
Hmm.
And we were walking past, we were chatting, we've been having a bit of a laugh. So we're in good spirits. I think that's important. I think this is
Yeah.
kind of a key to this experience. And out of the corner of my eye, on the end of this log, I saw this little, well, what I identify as a pixie, because he was brown. He was
Yeah.
sat on the end. He had his knees pulled up. He had a little hat, like a, let's say pointy. It wasn't sticking up pointy, it was sort of folded over
Right.
behind him.
Yeah.
And he had a really mischievous look on his face. So he was looking over his shoulder. And this all happened in a split second, I
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
see. And I said to my mum, "Oh, I just saw a pixie." And my mum said, straight away, she said, "Oh, yeah, pixie." Like, she said, "Oh, yeah, it's a pixie." I mean, how crazy is that? And I said, "Yeah, but did you see?" And she said, "Yeah, it's sat on the end of the log." It was
Right.
just
Yeah.
like a split second that we both saw it at the same
Yeah.
time. But I had a really clear image of it in my mind.
Yeah.
This little figure dressed in brown, um, very sort of natural brown clothing. I think his skin was sort of tanned as well, brown as well.
Hmm.
Everything, not traditional sort of pixie colours or anything.
Mm.
It was, just all bright, very natural colours. Um, very mischievous looking expression.
Yes.
And then he was gone, just like that. Um, yeah, so it was an incredible experience to see that with my mom at the same time.
Yeah. That's really special. That had she ever seen a pixie
Yeah,
before? Had she, what was her relationship with Fae and other
no,
worlds?
my mum, my mum, I would say she's quite mm, skeptical about anything to do with those sorts of things, or just a little, I don't know, maybe she's a little bit fearful and doesn't really want to
Mm.
talk about those sorts of things. Um, I've since spoken with her about it,
Hmm.
and I think because it was such a long time ago, and because of the treatment she's undergoing,
Yes.
she's losing her memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
She said, "Oh, did we? Did we see that?" I said, "Yes,
Mm.
we both saw it at the same time."
Mm. Mm.
Uh,
And at the time,
yeah,
did she talk about it anymore at the time? What was her response after she'd seen it?
it was just like, it was almost like, "Oh, yeah, well, that was interesting," but and then just let it go.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. It's interesting, and
there
I do
was
find
no,
it
yeah,
fascinating how people kind of make sense of it afterwards to themselves.
yeah. Whereas for me, that was just like I really hold that in my heart. It's a really special experience. It's almost like she was stepping into my world,
Yeah,
because when I talked with her about, "Oh, look, mum, that's all this, and I'm doing this," it's almost like she'd rather stay here in the real world.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is, now I don't know if it was you I spoke to about this, but I'm
Mm,
going to bring this up because, obviously with what we do, we
mm,
research fairies, we research fairy experiences, we're in this world and we get
mm,
used to it, this is normal for us. But for a lot of
mm,
people, it isn't. And, we all have people in our lives, maybe in our workplace, maybe in our home, maybe in our wider family or our friends, people that we love and care about, and that to them, this side of us that
mm,
we feel called to do this work. I know you feel the same as me, and that sort of feeling called to do this.
Mm.
Um, they find it really hard to resonate with this. They just can't quite kind of get their heads around, what we're about and what we're doing. And
Yes.
I do go to these healing workshops. I try and go once a year at
Mm.
least,
Mm.
because I just feel so much better for it. It's like peeling off another layer if there's ever anything to work on. And of course there is, because no matter how far you've come, there's always something
Mm.
that you're working on in your life. And so the last time I was there, I said to our teacher, which was Anik Brofman, Martin Brofman's wife, who now leads the workshops in the UK for Body Mirror System, um, what can people do? Because if people want their, say, loved ones in their lives, perhaps wider family or whatever, to understand what it is they're trying to do, how can they do that? And she said, why do you need to do that, really? She was saying that for some people, it's just too much of a jump because they
Mm.
have their way of understanding the world. And in order to take seriously what somebody else might be doing, which is just a massive leap for them, it would
Mm.
mean that they have to let go of what they know to be true for them. And they
Yes.
just can't do that. They can't do that because it's too much. It's too much.
Mm. Mm.
So, um, and she gave a really good example because her mother, so obviously Anik's this incredible healer.
Mm.
This is what she does with her life. And she has these amazing results, etc., etc. And when her mother was, going through things that she could help her with, she'd say, "Can I help you?" And her mother would never ever want her to help, which is really frustrating when you know that
Yeah.
we think that we can help our loved ones anyway. But more than that, her mother would, if she did give her a healing, her mother would say it was worse afterwards.
Mm.
So it was her way of really kind of
Yes.
really sort of believed that it was not just a load of nonsense, but actually
Mm.
detrimental, to believe in this sort of thing. And here's the proof, because I actually feel worse after you've done this kind of
Mm.
thing. Um,
Mm.
which is it's funny, really. Uh, so what she was saying was, rather than you bringing them into, come and see the world from my point of view, which just makes
Yeah.
them feel uncomfortable. They don't want to do that.
Yes. No.
More,
No.
visit them in their world instead.
Mm. Mm.
Go and talk about cricket, the news, their pet dog, what you'd like to cook for dinner. Go and visit in their world with them, because
Yes.
it's easier for you to go into
Mm.
their bubble of perception. And we all have our own bubbles of perception of this world.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's easier for you to visit them in their bubble and come back to your own,
Mm.
than for them to visit you in your bubble. It's too much. So
Mm.
when she told me that, it really helped, actually.
Mm.
It really helped.
Yes, that is helpful. It takes a lot of pressure off, I think, because there's nothing more disheartening, I think, than sharing something that you think is wow, amazing. And then somebody sort of just whatever, you know, dismissing
Yeah,
it. So I think it's about choosing. Definitely is about
definitely.
choosing
Yeah,
who you share these things with, because they are precious
yeah,
experiences. And like you say, we all have different perceptions of our experience and what's important to us. So yeah, I wanted to share about the fairy door
oh
experiences because
yes,
it's something
please. Yeah.
I did right. Pixie at the door. There we go.
Oh, lovely.
So this is something I typed up from my journal. Um, Right. So my sister, and I think this is around 2018ish, she gave me a fairy doll as a gift. And again, it was one of these gifts that has come along just when I'm either doing something that's connected with fairies. So at that particular time, I started doing this fairy artwork. I was really
Mm,
focusing on that. And out of the blue, on my doormat, I get this pixie doll come through the post. So it's almost like, oh, great, you're doing something for us again.
yeah,
Here's a little gift.
yeah.
um, and I thought, oh, great, this is lovely. It's quite a realistic little door with steps coming down. So I put it next to my bed. And also, I think this is important, is around that time, which was coming up to the end of October, so Samhain.
Mm,
Around that time, that autumn, I was doing something called Drew Yoga, which is a lovely form of yoga. It's very relaxing, um, very gentle. So I think I was in this sort of heightened state of awareness as well. I had this fairy doll by my bed in the early hours of this morning, this particular time. This is the 11th of November 2018. I heard door knocking and a doorbell. Um, and I'd heard it sounded like cupboard doors opening in my kitchen because I heard
okay.
literally creaking. So it's like somebody was opening my cupboard
Mm,
doors.
mm,
And I got out of bed and came downstairs. The cupboard doors weren't open. Within, I don't know what sort of time frame, it's very soon after it happened again. I heard knocking, and it's literally like it was next to my head,
yeah.
somebody knocking on the headboard.
Mm,
And I heard a door opening again. It was like it's a real creak, like a big door opening.
mm, mm.
And I didn't put two and two together. And I suddenly thought, I wonder if it's to do with that fairy door having it in my bedroom. And I thought, I reckon it is because it's almost like an open invite to the other world, having that for them to come in while I'm sleeping and wake me up and, you know, come into my room or into my reality. So after that, I set up some rules. I said, if you want to come in, please knock, but you've got to wait until I say you can come in.
Mhm.
And I also put some crystals on the steps as a way of
Yeah.
sort of a bit of a barrier of protection.
Hmm, hmm.
Um,
Did you kept the door there in your bedroom?
I moved it actually. I moved it downstairs because
Okay.
yeah, I kept it for a while. I thought actually I don't want to have this doorway in my room. I don't know who's
No.
going to come in
Well, you're sleeping in there
and
as
sleep.
well.
Yeah,
You know, that's your dream space
mm,
too, isn't it? Your physical dream
yeah,
space anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So you've got it sort of downstairs in the lounge or something, have you?
yeah, I've got it in the lounge now.
And have you had any more knockings or did anything happen in the lounge after
Um,
that?
no, but I do still hear in physical reality. I've heard over the years my letterbox tapping, and that always tends to be a time around some like a shift in my life.
Okay.
The letterbox tap three times,
Oh gosh, yeah.
um, or and I've heard door knocking and doorbells
Hmm,
again since, but felt it's more of a hello, we're still here,
hmm, mm.
yeah, rather than an intrusion. Um, and I've had like shadows as well. So after making all those connections with the pixie, who I
Yeah.
call Malachite, um, I started to see little shadows because I'd created a little figure of him, which I think I showed you. It's like a
Yeah.
model. of the
Yes,
pixie.
gorgeous. Yeah.
And around that time, it's almost like I'd invited his energy in by doing that.
Okay. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'd see in this half sort of waking, half asleep sort of state, liminal state, I'd see these shadows like of this little figure on the wall.
Right.
Um, I thought, oh, that's a bit bit spooky, but it didn't feel frightening. It just felt like, oh, I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Mm,
you know if it's something that is spooky, and you know when it's kind of perhaps a new relationship forming or something like that, isn't it?
mm,
Funny
mm.
enough, just before you started talking about the fairy door, there was a big knock from up there on the roof. I don't know what it was, but it was really loud. It sounded like something
Wow.
landed on the roof with a thud, but it kind of sounded like a knock knock up there on the roof
Oh,
anyway.
yeah, they've
It's
done,
probably a
and
cat, but the timing was impeccable. Not mine though,
they
because she's in the lounge at the moment.
oh, they are
Yeah.
tricksters. Because another thing they've done is they've done like the barber's knock. You know, the da 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 da. They've done that. I've
Really?
had that before to wake me up. Yeah. Mm.
Mm. Yeah, so lots of activity going on. I I was wondering about your son as well. Did he ever want to go back to that forest that you went to with him? Did he ever feel drawn to do that?
He, they haven't spoken about it.
Hmm.
He hasn't spoken about it recently, but I know if I said, "Oh, would you like to go back?" I'm sure he
He
would.
would, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's ends up being a difficult time for them, doesn't it, in their teens? And I just wondered
Mm,
if, because sometimes I know our son was like this.
mm,
We'd have to sort of take him along on walks and he'd be grumbling about it. But actually, when he got there, he really loved it. Sometimes they just need a bit of help getting in there, a bit of a push to get there, and then they do enjoy it, don't they? But it's usually like, no,
yeah.
it's really boring. I don't want to do it, don't want to do that. But actually, they really appreciate
Yeah.
it and love it when they do. But it is something nice for them,
Yeah.
young
I
people.
find, yeah, I find with them now that they're teenagers. I mean, obviously when they were
Mm,
little, they were a lot more, oh yeah, let's go out, a lot more
yeah,
excited about it and much more in the flow. But I find now they might have a little bit of resistance, be like, oh, I just want to stay at home.
mm,
But once we get out, it's almost like that experience that they had as children comes back and they just get back into that playfulness
yeah,
and um,
yeah.
loving it, you know?
That's
So,
what I guess it does for everyone. You forget yourself a bit, don't you? You forget
yeah,
all of the stuff, and for our young people, there is a lot of stuff weighing
mm,
heavy, isn't there? And, schoolwork and
there
social
is.
stuff and yeah,
And I think that was the change that I saw with my children in lockdown as well. For it, especially, and I've spoken to other parents about this at the beginning, when there wasn't much structure, when schools were just working out what they were doing, and we were just going out for walks. They were using the camera, taking photographs, and I saw in both of them their creativity come back
yeah, yeah,
and their imagination and all of those qualities that mainstream school tends to kind of suck out of children, really.
I know what you mean.
um, mm,
Yeah, I was reading recently that, tens, I could be wrong here, but I got a feeling it was something like 30,000 students haven't returned to school, and it was kind of geared towards the this kind of view on that was that those, and I hope not, that those children might be potentially children at risk. That's what it was kind of suggesting, is that, to the detriment of children, they haven't been able to return to school. But it did make me wonder, well, for how many of those children, how many of those families was it a conscious decision? We've
mm,
seen another way, let's try something different. maybe there isn't a different way that we can be living. Maybe there's a different way that you can be learning. I'm sure it
Mm,
probably gave a lot of people who might be like you and I recognize in our children that they do need more than what they're being
mm,
provided with at school, that kind of school structure situation, which doesn't suit everybody.
mm.
And maybe they were kind of on the borderline and went, well, yeah, let's keep going with this. I did wonder about that, and I have no idea sort of what the figures might reflect. But we definitely need more of this in our lives, don't we? We all do.
Yes, there's more gentleness, more nature connection, and
Yeah,
just more kind of back to what I call the real world, which is nature, really.
yeah,
That's who we are, isn't it?
definitely. The sun's
Mm.
just come out again here, which is lovely. And I'm
Ah,
I'm just thinking because while it's the darker
mm,
months here, sometimes it's trickier for some people to get out. And I was just thinking that at this time of year, it's great for path workings and things like that. If you can't
mm,
go outwardly exploring, it's a perfect time to go inwardly exploring. So when will your path
mm.
workings release? Because that I'm sure that would be a great gift to people.
I'm planning to do that in March because
Great.
I'm planning to do, if I can just talk about my podcast,
Yes,
I just
please.
had this real strong feeling that would be really good for this spring equinox coming to release a few episodes I've recorded about fairies with
Mhm.
people and my path working. So just be like from the 1st of March to the spring equinox on the 21st or 22nd of March, um, to release some empowering path workings and people talking about fairies as a way just to lift the vibe as
Yeah,
we go into the year. And it's just it's my contribution to helping to raise people's consciousness, bring some more joy into the world, and encourage people to explore, these other realms.
mm,
And perhaps if just one person gets something from it, then it's like job done, really. That's that's why I, do what I do. It's
yeah,
just a way to contribute to all the people like myself, like you, that are here to show people another way and give people some hope and a different perspective on life that might help. Yeah.
definitely. When you just said that, when you said like you, there was a little something that flew behind you. I'll have to watch that back. Perhaps I'll send you the video when
Oh,
it, and you can have a look as well. But something just went off in the background behind you
oh, oh,
because
wonderful.
your
Mm,
Weird Wonderful Wonders, which I love, and I
mm,
really like listening to them when I'm relaxing, particularly because they are very relaxing.
yes.
Are you going to be doing more walks and talks with people too? Because that's a
Yes.
really great aspect of part of your research
Yes.
is talking to people
Mm.
while you're on a walk.
Yes, yes. So I've had a few episodes. Yeah, actually, my next episode, um, which is coming out the 29th, so next week, next
Hmm.
Tuesday, is a walk and talk with the local author called Rosie Oakes,
Mm,
talking about her. She's written some local walks on Dartmoor.
mm, mm.
She's written a book about those, which I think is yet to be published. So that's my next episode, and she's got
Brilliant.
a bit of a ghost story that she tells, because I always like people to share an unusual experience that they've had, in whether it's UFOs, ghosts, fairies, aliens, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
while we're walking and talking. Yeah, I've also recorded a few on Zoom because there's people that I've been talking to abroad. But
Mm,
when I'm doing that and talking to somebody on Zoom, I always like to try and bring in their experience of nature and places
mhm.
as well. But yes, I'm going to be doing some more
Fab.
wanders.
Yeah,
Yeah,
love it. Love it. And
yeah,
hopefully we'll get together for a nice walk again next year sometime too. That would be really lovely. I did treasure our walk
yeah.
together.
Oh, it was fabulous, Joe,
Yeah, it
wasn't it?
really was.
Um, and all of like with the episode we recorded, but I've realized for most of the episodes I've recorded, there's always been some unusual experience that I have
Mm,
like the experience we had, which is in the episode or in the bonus episode we talk about. Um, that's episode 6 where we walk and talk together, wasn't it?
yeah.
And but lot of the episodes, or at least 3 of them, I've recorded EVPs now,
Okay. Yeah. Can
like the
you
one
uh
with
can you explain what EVPs are for people that don't
yes.
aren't familiar with that?
So there are electronic voice phenomena, which I think it's a guy called Raymond Cass, if I've got that right, who studied them
Hmm.
um, and brought them into sort of popular consciousness, I suppose. And they're used by paranormal
Science.
investigators.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, to and it's believed that they are spirit voices. Um, So when I was recording the episode I did with Kate Hegel Ray, I recorded a EVP. She had given me a personal message, and I recorded an EVP of a woman saying yes just before she was about to give me the message, almost like an affirmation of what she was
Hmm.
about to tell me. Um, in the episode I recorded with you, I recorded a woman in the background singing,
Mm.
and which is what Kate was talking about when recorded the EVP when she was giving me that message. And then I did another episode recently with Lorraine. Um, sorry, I've forgotten her surname, but she was talking about fairies in her garden. And there was a voice that came across affirming who I forgot what the message was, but it was agreeing with what she was saying about
Mm.
the elementals in her garden. So and I was interviewing somebody else recently. I could hear music while I was talking to her when she was talking about her connection with fairies and personal power and stepping into her personal power. There was this harp music playing, so
Right.
I don't know whether that's recorded and whether it'll be audible on the
Mm.
recording, but
Hmm.
I haven't listened back yet.
Mm.
So I'm going to do in future an episode about EVPs with
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
that all
yeah,
sounds really, really exciting. And these adventures just unfold, don't they? They keep unfolding in different ways. Oh, well,
yes,
yeah, thanks so much, Claire. It's been really
yeah.
lovely to
Thank you,
catch up.
Joe. Yeah,
And by the time this goes out, your piece will with the is it Jane on Dartmoor, the writer, your walk, that will be out by the time this
oh
goes out. So
Rosie, yeah,
oh
Rosie
Rosie,
Woods.
sorry, Rosie.
Yeah.
So I'll put some
Mm.
links up. What's the best way of people to get hold of you, to contact you?
You can contact me on if it's in connection with my podcast, Weird Wonderful Wonders at gmail.com. If you go onto my website, you can sign up to the little pop up there and sign up to my newsletter. Um,
What's your website?
it's faerywhisperer.co.uk and it's fairy Faery
Mm,
fairywhisperer.co.uk. So there's information
yeah.
about me on there. Um,
And where can people get hold of your artwork?
At the moment, I don't have it for sale. It's something I'm planning to do in the future, set up a Etsy shop because
Mm,
I'm focusing on writing my book
yeah,
about the pixies at the moment. So some of the artwork is going to go into there.
excellent.
And
Yeah.
then yeah, I would like to set up a shop of where people can buy prints.
Mm, mm. Right. So keep us
Yeah,
posted on the book as well.
I will. Yes.
Thank you. And you have a
Yeah.
Patreon.
Thanks. Oh yes, sorry, forgetting myself.
It's
I've
the
got
one
a
that I always
Patreon.
forget as well. I always forget to
Yeah.
mention my Patreon.
Yeah, I've got a Patreon. It's a lovely little group of people that I'm really thankful for because they support the cost of like my platform and all the things that I need to put my podcast out there and my other work. So,
Yeah.
my website, all of those sorts of things. So
Mm-hmm.
that is Fairy Whisperer patron community. So if you go into Patreon, you'll find me. You just put in search for Fairy Whisperer,
Lovely.
FAERY. I'm in there. So
FAER. Yeah.
yeah.
Real.
So and that's all. I've got bonus episodes on there, events, lots of bonus material. All my videos to do with the Dartmoor Pixies are on there now. They're from my YouTube. They're only available to my patrons.
Excellent.
So yeah.
Yeah. There's some really beautiful videos in there because I watched those in lockdown and
Mm.
I really enjoyed it. You can't if you can't get down to Dartmoor, um, those videos are really welcome. And so thanks for all the work that you're doing.
Mm.
And yeah, we'll speak again
Thank
soon.
you. Thanks, Joe.
Thank
It's been
you.
lovely. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.